Usually when we talk about being like an absolute master at something, a Fortune 500 CEO, an elite athlete, maybe a top-tier surgeon, we picture this state of effortless flow.
Oh, right, like complete control.
Exactly. Think of a veteran pilot just, flipping on the autopilot. The skies are totally clear, the mechanical systems are running perfectly, and the pilot can just sit back. They allow decades of muscle memory and accumulated experience to just do all the heavy lifting. You trust the machinery.
Yeah, I mean, it feels totally seamless. The environment is predictable, and your internal instruments are they're completely aligned with the task at hand.
But then you hit a massive, unexpected storm. The warning alarms start screaming in the cockpit. The horizon line completely disappears into the clouds, and suddenly that autopilot that you trusted with your life, it's diving you straight toward the ground.
And that is the exact moment when relying purely on your gut instinct, that automated expertise becomes incredibly dangerous. I mean, it's the terrifying moment when the internal systems we rely on for success actually begin to betray us.
Welcome to this deep dive. Today we are exploring the anatomy of a life-altering pivot and, the hidden mechanics of high-stakes choices. Our mission today is to blend elite sports psychology with executive decision-making theory. We really want to understand how we can rescue ourselves from the absolute paralysis of anxiety.
And we have a brilliant stack of sources to guide us today, too. We are analyzing a fascinating 2023 NC Executive Master's Thesis by Nikolai Bank, which is all about the psychodynamics of decision-making.
Such a great paper.
It really is, and we're pairing that academic lens with a really revealing interview featuring tennis legend Andre Agassi from the Serve Show, along with biographical excerpts from his memoir, Open.
So by the end of this deep dive, you are going to understand exactly why your own gut instincts sometimes, completely fail you under intense pressure, and how finding a true North Star can essentially reset your entire operating system. Okay, let's unpack this.
Right. So to really understand how a mind operates under immense pressure, we first have to look at, the blueprint of how that mind was built. The NC thesis leans heavily into a psychoanalytic framework known as the clinical paradigm. And a core concept here is that our adult behavior is deeply driven by childhood object relations.
Let me just stop you there and define object relations for a moment, because that sounds like, heavy academic jargon.
Fair enough.
My understanding from the thesis is that it's essentially the blueprint of our earliest relationships, usually with our parents or caregivers. The way we interacted with them becomes this hidden lens through which we view all adult interactions, pressures, authority figures. Is that right?
That is a great way to put it, actually. The clinical paradigm suggests that what happens on the outside, so in a boardroom or like on a tennis court, is just a projection of our unconscious inner theater. We are constantly replaying those early scripts.
And Agassi's early script, his inner theater, was essentially a psychological horror movie from day one.
Oh, completely.
Yeah, in the sources, he is incredibly candid about the fact that he hated tennis. He didn't just dislike it, he actively despised it. And that hatred stemmed from being driven purely by the fear of his tyrannical father.
An Iranian immigrant, right?
Right, who built a literal ball machine that they called the Dragon.
Just the name is terrifying.
Seriously, and this wasn't just like a standard practice machine. It was this imposing, terrifying symbol of conditional love that fired tennis balls at a 7-year-old Andre at 175 kilometers per hour.
Wow.
He was forced to hit thousands of balls a day just to appease his father.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Agassi was operating on what psychologists call survival anxiety. He wasn't performing out of a love of the game or a desire for mastery or, intrinsic motivation.
He was just surviving.
Exactly. He was performing out of a primal nervous system level fear for his own existence. He was just trying to survive his father's relentless demands.
And we see that survival mechanism manifests so clearly in his early career, right? To survive that crushing pressure, Andre created this flamboyant, intensely rebellious persona in the 80s and 90s.
Oh, yeah, the neon colors.
The bleached hair, the neon clothes, the literal denim shorts on the court. He even wore a toupee to hide his early hair loss. It was basically a giant affront to the polite, quiet establishment of the country clubs.
It was a shield.
Yeah. And reading through the thesis, you can draw such a strong parallel to the corporate world here. It's the equivalent of an executive who feels like an imposter, so they hide behind, impenetrable corporate jargon, or they build massive, overly complex Excel spreadsheets just to keep their colleagues at a distance.
That's a really good point.
They build a persona to protect the frightened child underneath. But I have to push back on the theory here for a second. If Agassi hated tennis so much and his inner theater was acting entirely out of fear, why was he winning?
Hmm.
Doesn't fear actually drive high performance?
Well, it can, but only up to a point. And it comes with a massive, unsustainable psychological cost. I mean, fear is a powerful short-term motivator because it floods the system with adrenaline and cortisol.
Right.
But living in a constant state of survival anxiety is exhausting for the brain. It disrupts the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for complex decision-making and emotional regulation. It just keeps you in a perpetual state of hypervigilance.
Oh, it's not sustainable.
Not at all. You might achieve incredible things in the short term, but your psychological foundation is incredibly brittle. When the environment changes, or when the external pressure exceeds your internal coping mechanisms, that fear stops being a motivator. It turns into a paralyzing force.
That structural collapse seems inevitable when you frame it that way. You can't run an engine in the red zone forever without it blowing out. And that takes us directly to the crash of 1997,
Yeah,
because that brittle foundation completely shattered.
it really did.
Agassi hits an absolute rock bottom. His world ranking plummets all the way to 141. He's trapped in a deeply unhappy marriage to the actress Brooke Shields. He's profoundly depressed, and he actually starts using crystal meth to cope.
Just a total spiral.
Yeah, and it gets so bad that to avoid a suspension, he actually lies to the ATP, the governing body of tennis, claiming he accidentally drank a spiked beverage. In his memoir, he describes just sitting in his living room, completely and utterly paralyzed by his life.
This is where the decision-making framework from the inset thesis really illuminates what was happening under the hood.
Okay, let's hear it.
The thesis utilizes Daniel Kahneman's famous two systems of thinking. System one is fast, intuitive, associative, automatic. It's what we casually call your gut instinct.
Right.
And system two is slow, rational, deliberate, resource-heavy. Now, the research reveals a fascinating, almost paradoxical secret about leadership. Executives actually make up to 98% of their decisions using system one.
Wait, 98%? That is staggering, considering how much time corporate leaders spend looking at data and analytics.
It is, but the catch is they feel immense shame about it. In corporate culture, you are expected to be a purely rational actor.
So they fake it.
Essentially, yes. Executives pretend to be highly analytical, carefully weighing every option in System 2, when in reality they are relying on the automated pattern recognition of their gut in System 1.
Wait, let me stop you there. We always hear about trusting your gut. Intuition is supposed to be the ultimate superpower of elite athletes and top-tier CEOs. If he has this world-class System 1, why is his gut instinct completely destroying his life at this point? Why is he paralyzed on his couch?
Because intense anxiety severely impairs your intuition. System 1 relies on recognizing patterns from past experiences. It needs a relatively calm baseline to access those heuristics.
Okay.
But when you are overwhelmed by survival anxiety, when your personal life is falling apart and your career is tanking, your brain goes into a hyper-reactive threat mode. You can't read the patterns anymore. Your threat detection system just overrides your expertise.
The thesis identifies a specific term for this, right? Management fright.
Yes. Management fright. It occurs when an executive makes a mistake or feels entirely overwhelmed by anxiety. Because their System 1 is compromised, they can't trust their gut. And because their System 2 is overwhelmed by the cognitive load of stress, they can't think rationally.
So they're trapped.
Exactly. So they often take refuge in inactivity and self-sabotage. They become terrified of making the wrong choice, so they make no choice at all.
So it's not that they don't know what to do, it's that the cognitive load of potentially being wrong outweighs the cost of doing nothing. They just freeze. Agassi couldn't trust his autopilot because the storm of his personal life had completely scrambled his instruments.
Beautifully put.
But then comes the turning point.
Yeah.
The epiphany. He's at a tournament in Stuttgart, Germany. He's ranked 141. He's losing in the first round, and he's just playing terribly. His coach, Brad Gilbert, just locks the door to the hotel room and tells him to quit. He says, "I care about you too much to watch you do this. Let's just stop."
And paradoxically, being given permission to quit by an authority figure is what finally gave him back his agency.
It's an incredible psychological shift. By removing the external pressure to perform, Gilbert removes the threat. And it triggers this massive epiphany. Agassi realizes, and this is a quote, "Just because I didn't choose my life doesn't mean I can't take ownership of it."
That's powerful.
Right. And around this same time, he happens to watch a television program on KPP charter schools, which operate in economically challenged areas. And it hits him. He can use tennis, this sport that he deeply resents, this thing that tortured him as a kid, to build a school for underprivileged kids in Las Vegas.
A total shift in perspective.
Yeah, he finds a purpose outside of his own survival. While still ranked 141 in the world, he takes out a $40 million mortgage to build this school. He drops down to the incredibly humbling challenger circuit, playing in tiny towns in front of small crowds to rebuild his ranking.
I mean, think about the psychological humility that takes. It is the exact equivalent of a Fortune 500 vice president stepping down from a prestige role to run a scrappy, underfunded nonprofit, or taking a massive pay cut to realign their career with their actual values.
Yeah, it's unheard of.
The thesis notes that when executives are completely lost in anxiety, the only way they can find their bearings is by returning to their core values. Those values act as a North Star. Agassi couldn't fix his anxiety by just trying harder to hit a tennis ball. He had to completely replace his childhood survival anxiety with a profound, outward-facing purpose.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's think of this shifting operating system like holding a compass. If you are lost in the deep woods without a magnetic north to guide you, every single step you take feels terrifying. You're paralyzed by management fright because any path could be the wrong one, leading you deeper into danger.
Right, because there's no direction.
Exactly. But once Agassi found his true north, those kids in Vegas, the tennis court was no longer a prison built by his father. It was just a tool. It was just a vehicle to fund his compass.
The environment didn't change at all. He was still hitting a ball over a net. But his relationship to that environment transformed completely. He moved from fear-based avoidance to purpose-driven action. However, having a North Star doesn't mean the anxiety permanently vanishes.
Oh, definitely not.
Especially when you are thrust right back into a high-stakes environment where the pressure is immense.
And the stakes do not get any higher than the 1999 French Open final. Agassi has fought his way back up the rankings. He is playing against Andre Medvedev, and there's this incredible, almost cinematic detail from the sources.
Oh, Monte Carlo story.
Yes. Weeks prior to this final, Agassi had actually bumped into Medvedev at a nightclub in Monte Carlo and casually coached him on how to use his game to win on clay. He basically handed the guy the blueprint to beat him. And now they are facing off in the final for the one Grand Slam title Agassi has never won.
The pressure is astronomical.
Yeah.
He knows this might be his very last chance to complete the career Grand Slam, securing his legacy.
And he completely freezes on the court. The management fright returns. He goes down 2-0 in a brutal 47 minutes. He describes standing on the court, deer in the headlights, and he actually feels empathy for the French crowd because they are watching an absolute train wreck of a match.
It's just a total System 2 overload.
Yeah, but then a roundelay hits. They go back to the locker room. It's dead silent.
Yeah.
And Brad Gilbert, who is usually very calm and collected, just loses his mind. He slams the lockers. He yells at Andre, saying, if he's too good, fine, but at least go down swinging.
What's fascinating here is a groundbreaking cognitive concept introduced in the INSEAD thesis. The decision itself acts as a transitional
A
object.
transitional object like a child security blanket or a teddy bear.
Exactly like that. In child psychology, a transitional object soothes emotional pain and anxiety when a child is separating from the comfort of the mother. It occupies a physical and psychological space to provide safety.
Okay, I'm following.
In executive decision-making, the act of making a firm choice occupies that exact same psychological space. The thesis quotes the 12th century philosopher Maimonides, who said, "The risk of a wrong decision is preferable to the terror of indecision."
Let's apply this to a corporate setting. Imagine a panicked corporate boardroom during a terrible financial quarter. Everyone is frozen, looking at the spreadsheet, terrified to pull the plug on a failing project because no one wants their fingerprints on the failure.
A very common scenario, sadly.
Right. Are you saying that taking an action, even if it might be the wrong action strategically, is actually psychologically better for the executive team than taking no action at all?
In terms of breaking the paralysis of anxiety, absolutely. By taking an action, any deliberate action, you create a boundary. You contain the anxiety. When you are paralyzed, you're trapped in an endless loop of System 2 overthinking. You are agonizingly evaluating every possible disastrous outcome.
Just spinning your wheels.
Right. The violent but effective psychological safety provided by his coach screaming at him gave Agassi the permission to stop that overthinking loop. Gilbert's intervention allowed him to drop the heavy cognitive load of trying to win the match and safely return to his automated expertise as System 1. He didn't need to win the match in his head. He just needed to make the decision to swing the racket.
The action itself was the security blanket. He just had to swing.
Exactly.
And he does. He goes back out onto the court, the overthinking is gone, and he enters the zone completely. He comes back from 2 sets down, wins the match, and completes the career Grand Slam. It's one of the greatest comebacks in sports history.
It really is.
And that transition from a frozen, terrified player trapped in System 2 to a master of his craft operating in System 1 sets up the entire second act of his life.
Because once the survival anxiety is permanently removed and you have that North Star guiding you, your System 1 intuition can finally operate at its absolute peak.
It's like the clouds part.
Yeah. The thesis defines this peak intuition as the end product of an implicit learning experience.
Yeah.
It's not magic. It's thousands of hours of data processing happening subconsciously. And a crucial insight from the research is that a positive mood actually enhances pattern recognition.
Really. A positive mood.
Yeah. When you are trapped in threat detection mode, your focus narrows. Free from fear, Agassi's brain could widen its peripheral processing and finally see the game as it was meant to be seen.
So what does this all mean? The level of processing he reached is just astonishing. After this pivot, he finds personal stability, he marries Steffi Graf, and his on-court tactical awareness becomes legendary.
It's like he could see the Matrix.
Honestly, yeah.
Yeah.
In the interview, he drops these hyper-specific details that show what a healed mind can actually see when it's not looking for threats. Like he noticed that Boris Becker's tongue would point in the exact direction he was going to serve.
Which is wild.
He could read Stefan Edberg's knuckle grips to predict a shot before the racket even moved. He realized Pete Sampras's greatest weapon wasn't his power, but his ability to intentionally break his opponent's rhythm. And my favorite detail, he once hilariously kicked over Rafael Nadal's perfectly aligned water bottles on the sideline.
I love that story.
Just to rattle Nadal's famous OCD routines before a crucial break point. It's so brilliant.
That is the epitome of System 1 functioning flawlessly. He is no longer consumed by his own internal turmoil. All of the mental bandwidth that used to be spent managing his childhood trauma is now entirely freed up to observe the external world. He can pick up on microscopic cues, a tongue twitch, a knuckle shift, that a mind clouded by anxiety would completely miss.
When you look at the stark contrast between the man who was sitting in his living room, paralyzed and self-destructing in 1997, and the absolute master tactician reading Boris Becker's tongue just a few years later, it's the exact same brain.
The hardware didn't change at all.
Right. The software was just finally pointed toward a true North Star.
The capability was always there, buried under the weight of his father's expectations. It was just suffocated by the wrong operating system.
And that brings us directly to you listening right now. You don't have to be a Grand Slam tennis champion, and you certainly don't have to be a Fortune 500 CEO to suffer from decision paralysis.
Yeah.
We all face those moments where the autopilot fails, the warning lights flash, and the storm hits.
Everybody goes through it.
It's worth taking a moment this week to examine your own inner theater. Look at the choices you're making at work or in your personal life. Are your daily decisions being driven by survival anxiety? Are you just trying to avoid the wrath of a difficult boss or the judgment of your peers, playing out an old childhood script?
Or are those decisions anchored to a true North Star, a purpose that exists outside of your own ego and fears?
And if you find yourself frozen by the terror of indecision, facing your own version of management fright, remember the concept of the transitional object. Taking a deliberate action, even a risky one, even one that might turn out to be wrong, sets a boundary against fear. It can serve as the psychological security blanket you need to stop overthinking and break free from that paralysis.
Sometimes you just have to take the swing and trust your training.
Exactly. Take the swing. But as we wrap up this deep dive, there is one final fascinating warning hidden in the insaid thesis that we want to leave you with.
This raises an important question about the limits of our experience. While we've spent a lot of time praising the power of System 1 intuition, the academic research clearly shows that intuition actually has an expiration date.
Wait, an expiration date?
Yes. Studies indicate that the effectiveness of intuitive decision-making drops significantly for executives once they pass 25 years of experience in their field.
Think about the implications of that. At what point in your own life does your hard-earned intuition stop being a superpower and start becoming a rigid bias that blinds you to your next necessary pivot? When does the autopilot stop saving you and start flying you directly into the storm? Something to ponder the next time you decide to just trust your gut.